Hi to the elders in my church, Jubilee Community Church in Cape Town. I thought I should just write to you today just to raise a particular issue with regards to a number of people who are coming to our morning services, particularly on the Sunday morning, particularly those whom we call homeless people, especially the group that is coming from outside of our country. So these are people who, some of them are homeless and they are called street people. I've noticed a number of people who have been coming over the last 3 years. The number has increased tremendously. When I last did the head count for me, it felt like there's been an increase of about 20% of people coming into our church on a Sunday morning. What I find particularly interesting is that, yes, we serve coffee, so they do come and help themselves with the coffee that we serve. As you know, our church is mostly 80% white and middle class, and a lot of the people who come through are not necessarily able to speak the language that is spoken or even use the lingo that exists in our church. Often what happens is that they seem, by the looks of things, just to come through only to have a little bit of coffee. I do not believe that they are included as part of the service. I think it's because, one, I'm not convinced that they're able to understand our lingo, as I've said, or secondly, that they are able to relate to the content of what is being preached. I think what is particularly disturbing also is the fact that there has been an increase in the number of people who are being attacked, some of them on the way to church, or perhaps they are just vulnerable to the manner in which perhaps where they live, they're getting robbed, they just become part of the vulnerable group. What often happens is that our services, we just carry on as if they do not exist. And there is clearly a line that you can feel between those of us who think that we are at home and comfortable and feeling engaged, and we relate to the sermons that are being preached, yet at the same time, there is a sense in which a whole lot of them are actually excluded, and it's a clear line of us and them. And also the dimension in which it takes is mostly white people who are middle class enjoying the service, and the dimension of those who are homeless or street people, so to speak, tend to be people of color. Now, I have been engaging very closely, particularly with some of them, especially with one or two who have died violently, the pain of which I have been able to identify. That something needs to be done. And perhaps we may have to change the way in which we do church. We may have to look at what are some of the things that we need to do on our own. And I think it's going to require, firstly, a conscious effort from our side to shift away from being comfortable on a Sunday morning to actually feeling a sense of discomfort and a sense of identifying with the people who are coming amongst us. It may require of us that we change our life groups, or perhaps our middle of the week groups where we meet, to actually consciously meet in places where people find themselves. It may require especially a change of our own language, how we preach, because a lot of the theology that we preach, a lot of the terminology that we engage, that we use on a Sunday morning, the examples, It's all high class. It's kind of business-like. It's also related to the manner in which people of a particular class see themselves. We may have to get out of a way of doing things and seek to draw people in amongst us. Yes, if they profess Jesus Christ to be Lord and Savior of their lives, if they are Christians, we may have to ask them to actually lead us in certain aspects. We may have to ask them in some aspects for them to take on certain responsibilities within our church. We may have to actually go and plant churches where they live. We may have to ask them to come and preach to us so that we begin to change our particular mindset. But I think the most important thing is we may have to look at what Jesus did when he encountered the downtrodden, the poor, the excluded of society. We may have to look at doing a whole lot of a new series that seeks to speak in a way where we no longer create the us and them situation, where our church actually reflects something totally different from what's happening in Cape Town. Clearly, the city of Cape Town, like other cities in the world, is becoming filled with people who live on the streets, people who live in tents, who, some of them literally have been homeless for the last 5 to 6 years, who have become now fodder for politicians and those who are seeking to be included in public office. Now, I would like us to seek a way in which, for a period of 3 months, our sermons look at how Jesus Christ dealt with the downtrodden, the poor, those who are on the periphery of society, how he confronted particularly structures, how those who saw Jesus Christ as being accessible to them all the way to the extent that he was able to reach to them. Otherwise, our church will continue to be a church for middle-class, comfortable people who speak English like myself, perhaps who may be shifting away from the gospel which speaks to those who are poor and downtrodden. Here we're talking about children, we're talking about women, we're talking about men, and the category of them, some of them are unemployed. I would like to even get to a situation where we seek out for their children and find schools where they should be going to schools. We may have to restructure our social ministries at Jubilee and have that sensitive to the poor, as opposed to our social ministries just being an added on. In fact, we need to flip the thing around completely, where our gospel actually flows out from our social ministries, as opposed to we just having our church and then we add on what we think. It may require of us to pause and stop and say how what we're doing and continue to do in our church seek to reach those who are downtrodden and those who are poor. It may cause a lot of what we are doing to be uncomfortable to many people. It may require of us to count the cost of what is it that it will take for us to change the way in which we do. Now, I want to make it very clear that in the future, the dream that I would like to see would be how our leadership actually of our church would reflect the people who are coming regularly on our services. Our current leadership is totally middle class and completely white. What actually needs to happen is we may need to reframe and reach and change our focus so that we reflect the women, the men, the poor, the unemployed, those who live in the streets, those who are homeless, and reflect in our leadership. That may cause us to have a theology that is empowering as opposed to a theology that is creating division at the moment. Now, I am a person of color, and I feel totally included in the manner in which people speak and address me. I'm talking about the homeless people. Recently, we received news again of someone who was attacked and beaten up and shot at, purely because he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And the manner in which we are responding to this caused a lot for us to desire, a lot to be desired. How about we pause for a month and ask these deep questions? What needs to change? What is Jesus Christ challenging us when it comes to these kind of things? God bless you.